Hello, welcome back to my channel. So, it is the 22nd of May, and partly because I had book hauls, and partly because I just didn't have very good luck with making videos in certain parts of the week. I never really got a second week update done that I liked and was willing to post. So, it is now the end of the third week of May, and it's time to do some updating because we still have a while to go in May. Nobody, to my knowledge, has escaped the Readathon yet. So we are still reading like mad, trying to get our team out of the crazy carnival that is the Readathon for this month. So partly because of that Readathon, as of today, I have finished 36 books in May. And I keep feeling like I haven't finished that many books. And every time we have a new prompt, I'm like, oh, I need to make sure I get a book finished for this prompt because I don't feel like I've finished anything. I need to be not slacking, let's put it that way. It's interesting what readathons do to a reader, because 36 books and it's only 22 days into the month. And I have logged every book for something for this readathon. But I still feel like I should be doing more. I finished 36, but maybe if I read shorter books faster, I could do a few more. And there are some people on the various teams, not just on ours, that read more romance or short genre fiction novellas, things that go faster. A lot of people do read graphic novels, which I don't own very many. I don't read them very much. So there are some people on our team that, because of the way this readathon is structured, they are way beyond what I'm doing as far as MVPs for their teams. So like I said last time I talked about it, I am not the one completing the most books in my team. Guaranteed. That said, not doing too shabby. Doing a lot better than I thought I was, actually. I still feel like I'm barely finishing anything, and I keep getting distracted. And this past week, I've been more distracted than usual because the storm season has picked up. And I'm a bit of a nerd. If you haven't caught on before, a little bit of a nerd. I really like storms, and I really like ocean creatures, and space. And I actually did study bits of the science of all three at some point or another when I was a college student. I did actually take a middle to upper level astrophysics class at one point, and cosmology, which is kind of the theory part of astrophysics, like the structure of the universe kind of stuff. Fun stuff. Like the math for black holes and white holes, and whether the universe is expanding or not, that kind of stuff. So I definitely go for that kind of nerdy stuff. I did an atmospheric physics class, which I didn't do very well. The professor for that one was Chinese with a really, 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 really heavy accent, and she wasn't very good at lecturing. She was new. She was probably a postdoc. So having been in grad school myself, I have an idea of what she was doing, and I sympathize, but I needed a different kind of professor for that class. I did not do very well. But I loved the subject. I still might have the textbook. If not, I will be probably watching for a new textbook in that subject. Maybe more than one. because it's cool. Yeah, so I've been really distracted the last couple days watching Storm Chasers, because that's how we know how tornadoes work and how major storms work. You can only find out so much from radar, because radar is not located everywhere. In the city, you kind of get the feeling like, we can measure everything and know where everything is at all times. And, if there's a tornado, obviously there's got to be some, officials somewhere that know exactly where it is and what it's doing. That is not the case even in cities, especially in the dark, especially in heavy rain and heavy winds. It's really hard to actually see a lot of tornadoes, even with instrumentation and everything, especially if they're what's called rain-wrapped, where there's heavy downpouring rain all the way around the tornado, so that you actually can't see the physical structure of the tornado itself. And sometimes on the radar, the rain actually obscures the signal that you can tell that there's a tornado by. So storm chasers, being on the ground, literally driving into the storms everyone else is trying to get out of, they're the ones that are kind of ground truthing what the radar scans and the other scans are saying. So that's how we know when it looks like this on the scan, this is what it looks like in real life. Very important for any sort of indirect imagery. So that's part of what they do, and then they also take data on the storms themselves. A lot of the storm chasers do have, ways of measuring atmospheric pressure and things like that are on their vehicles or with them, and they are taking data as they're going through some of these storm systems. My favorite to watch, he's a bit insane, but you have to be to do this kind of work. They actually have a tank, basically. The lead guy for this team is Readathons, and he and his team have a modified truck that has armor plating and stuff, and it can kind of settle down onto the ground so that winds can't get up under it and flip it. It's a really cool concept. And they have tried it, actually parking it where the tornadoes go, and the tornado goes over it. They measure stuff in the tornado and take imagery, and then they eventually the vehicle pops back up and they keep going. The popping back up and keeping going part, it's early days. There's some technical issues, but they're always fun to watch. And they are pointedly chasing down tornadoes so they can park where the tornado's going to be, so they can sit in front of it and the tornado goes over them and they can collect data. They also have some drone things that they can deploy so they can leave those in the path of the tornado and then move on, so they don't have to sit in the path of the tornado. For really strong ones, some of the ones that happened yesterday, I don't think I'd want to be sitting in even a tank like what they're driving in some of those tornadoes. And they didn't go through those. The one that happened that went through a town yesterday and did kill some people and might be an F4 or stronger. You don't sit through that in a tank unless you have to. So there's limits. That said, one of the other tornadoes yesterday, they got amazing footage for. I'm going to put a link in the description in this video, even though we're books and crochet mostly. We're stuff I do is kind of the theme here, and this is some of the stuff I'm really into. So, and it's just really insanely cool footage. a really amazing looking multiple vortex tornado versus wind turbines. Yeah, it's particularly cool because when you look at a tornado, you see the funnel shape, and you kind of have an intuitive sense of where the destructive power of that thing is. And when you look at the line of wind turbines and where the tornado is, you really expect that at least one of the other wind turbines should be being flattened, not the one that actually gets snapped in half in the video. It's in a weird spot for where, based on what you see, you would expect the winds to be able to snap a wind turbine. So yeah, it's cool stuff. It's how the science works. I do not have the guts or the skills to be one of the storm chasers. Absolutely not. But I still find the science and the adventure parts of it fascinating. And if I had the right opportunity, I could definitely see going along on one of these chasing trips. Riding along and handling cameras. That could be fun. But yeah, it'd have to be with somebody I trust, that they're not going to drive into a storm that's beyond what our vehicle could take, because some storm chasers are insane. Yeah. So I won't say much more about that, but there will be more chatting about storms and storm chasing stuff guaranteed on this channel, because I find the physics and the science aspects of storm research fascinating. When we get into hurricane season, that's another kind of storm that the instrumentation and the way we know about these things is just amazing. And there are people that fly into a hurricane for the same reason, because you can't get that data unless you can somehow get your instrumentation into the middle. And so there are insane people that fly into the hurricane so that they can measure it and then somehow get back out. Yeah, so anyway, so that will be in the description. Just a link to the footage that Reed Timmer and his team got yesterday. It's amazing. It's, yeah. So that's what I've been doing instead of reading. Well, I did read some. I did finish a few books in the last 2 days, but so I feel like I'm not getting much reading done because I've been getting distracted with my other hobbies. But apparently not, because 36 books. So in this week, the books I finished were Familiaris by David Wroblewski. I believe that's how you say it. Familiaris is the follow-up to the story of Edgar Sawtelle, which I haven't read, but I do own, and I'm intending to read it. I might read it next month. We'll see. So it's still with the Sawtelle family and Familiaris. You do not have to have read the story of Edgar Sawtelle to get a lot out of Familiaris. I didn't feel like I was missing anything. It was really good. One of my 5-star books for this month. Solid 5 stars. I enjoyed it very much. It was a long book, but I highly recommend it. And that was an arc. It comes out much later in the year, so you have some time to prepare for it if you want to be reading Familiaris. I don't remember what month it comes out. Do I write these things in my notebook? No. Maybe for next month I will start adding that to my notebook. But yeah, definitely highly recommend. If you haven't read the story of Edgar Sawtelle, you may want to read that as well, but you don't have to read Familiaris. So yeah, highly recommend. And then Unknown by Didier von Coler. Coalert. I don't know if there's... I'm guessing he's Dutch. I don't know. But I do have the book. Yeah, with Liam Neeson in the movie. This is one of the ones from my book haul that I decided to start right away. It was good. It's a thriller. Dude shows up at his apartment having been in a coma for 3 days. And his wife's husband comes to the door when he rings the doorbell. And nobody knows who he is. And yeah. So it's an interesting, very fast, very short thriller. I won't say too much about it because it's very short, so it's hard to say much more than that without spoiling anything. But yeah, I do recommend that. 4 stars. Not earth-shattering, but really good. Then Passing by Noah Larson. This is one that's on several book lists that I've been working my way through. I listened to it as an audiobook. It was not very long. It's a novella about 2 women who are light-skinned African American and are passing for white. And you know, in white elite society where their family knows that they've married into white people, but the white people don't know that they're not white people. And one of them is being a bit reckless. And, you know, threatening to destroy everything that they have, basically. So that one's interesting. You know, it's a novella. It doesn't have a lot of pages to develop the story, and it kind of just stops. It doesn't really resolve very well. So that was a 4-star for me. Then West from Singapore by Louis L'Amour, which I also have in print. This one is a short story collection. It's not very long. And this is actually some of Louis L'Amour's earliest short stories, because he started out, before he started writing all the Westerns, he was writing about the stuff that he knew at the time. He actually did work on ships in the East Asian coastline. Ships and boats. Not all of what he was working on were the big ones. So he knew some of the ports that the bigger ships can't use because the ports don't have a deep enough approach. So it was interesting. Definitely some different perspectives on some of these places and cultures. But the writing wasn't nearly as good as Louis L'Amour's later stuff. So that one ended up being about a 3.5, 3.75 for me. Then we have try not to knock all my books off by getting the book out. Alright. We have The Dutch House. This one is a 4.25 probably for me. It was really good. It was a solid literary fiction book. Some things listed as historical fiction. I think Storygraph lists it as historical fiction. And I guess I could see that, but it's really just literary fiction. About a family that was rich and becomes poor and how they deal with it. And, you know, kind of, you know, trying to maintain some semblance of who they were when they were rich, now that they're not. Yeah. So, kind of looking at class and elite society and various other things like that in the United States. Then I listened to an audiobook of Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said by Philip K. Dick. This was a reread for me. I almost understand this novel now. Almost. So, yeah, I'll probably reread it again eventually. This is one, it's sci-fi in which there is a drug that allows the person taking it to overlap more than one reality in the same space until the drug wears off and then they collapse back into one of those realities. And kind of what would that mean? What does it look like when you have something that does that? It's a bizarre concept, and I'm not sure if anybody could do it any better, because it's like, how would that work? But it was fun, and it's definitely one of those books that if you're going to tackle some of Philip K. Dick's novels, you have to do more than one read, because the first time you're just barely scratching the surface. This is one of those. And then I did... Let's try to not knock all the books off. Life Ceremony by Sayaka Murata. Totally forgot her name for a second there. This is the same author as The Earthlings and Convenience Store Woman. I loved Convenience Store Woman. Earthlings was okay. This one, it was a 4-star for me. 4.5 actually, I ended up with. Despite the fact that it's around themes of cannibalism and changed taboos and morality around sex and cannibalism. So it was a different sort of book. Sci-fi-esque. There's not really any science-y anything going on in here, but it's set in a future in which humanity is declining, the population is shrinking, and society is shifted to favor, for some reason, cannibalism and a different approach to sexuality. I'm not sure it worked. But it was interesting. It's a linked short stories format. I think some of the short stories are just in there without being part of this sequence exactly. But for the most part, it reads like a novel in short stories. After that one, I did an audiobook of Midnight Riot, which is the Rivers of London, Book 1, by Ben Aronovich. This one was a recommendation from Leandra, and I definitely enjoyed this one. I am not sure I understood everything with my first time through it. It was an audiobook, and I will probably reread this book at some point in the future. But we'll see. I may have gotten everything I was supposed to, and it's just the first book in a trilogy, so I'll need to see how book 2 goes and see if I feel like I missed anything. But it was fun. It's kind of fantasy crime, sort of. They're solving crimes that involve ghosts, and there's gods involved, but it reads like a murder mystery as far as the shape of the story, just with all these other characters. So in that sense, it's a lot like Kevin J. Anderson, his series, I'll remember as soon as I'm not trying to think of it. Anyway, Kevin J. Anderson also has a series that is ghosts and werewolves and vampires and all that, and crime novels. So, similar sort of stories. And there's also another one. Now that I'm trying to remember it, Mario Acevedo. And his starts with... Oh, I'll do a video on these maybe, one of these days. But yeah, there's several other series that are doing similar things. This one, though, is set in London and has kind of vibes that remind me of Neil Gaiman, but only tangentially, really. Mostly the setting. Then we have Slowness by Milan Kundera. Trying to remember how Salman Rushdie said it. Anyway, not a favorite. There's a reason nobody talks about this book. It's not very good. It's not terrible. It's got some quotable bits. But, yeah, there's not really much going for it. It's just kind of a filler book, was my impression. Like, Kundera's got other books that are really, really good. This one just is a book that fills in a gap. Yeah. There is a plot. Maybe I just didn't connect with the characters very well. It does have a plot, which is saying something. Not all of them do. If there's anything else I want to say that's not... Yeah. It's kind of two love stories, but they're not love stories. I don't know. It's not very long. If you want to try it and see if you get anything out of it, it's not a huge investment. It's under 200 pages. Just not a very impressive book for me. I gave it 2 stars. It was not impressive for me. Then I did a NetGalley arc, The Road to the Salt Sea by Samuel Kalawole. This one is set in Nigeria and is following a young man who is escaping Nigeria and goes on a journey to try to reach Europe. So he's becoming an illegal immigrant, and it's his journey to cross the sea and get to... He's aiming for Italy. He ends up in Malta, but he's aiming for Italy. He lands in several other places along the way. In that sense, it reminded me of the structure of the Odyssey or of the Inferno. And there are several passages where I think he actually was going for that. It's dark and heavy. Unrelentingly dark and heavy. To such an extent that I think this story would have benefited from a little bit better pacing. With a little bit of tension relief somewhere fit in among this story. It was one of those where by the end of it, you no longer get the full impact of what's happening even, because you've been so desensitized that there's not much that can really reach you anymore. It's that badly paced. So that was my biggest problem with this book. It is a nice perspective on illegal immigration and what people go through before they become the illegal immigrants that we see on the boats that people are being rescued from by the Coast Guard. So that is an important perspective. We do have a tendency to dismiss people as kind of, not worth much, to put it bluntly. Once they reach that stage where they are, crammed on a boat that can't possibly hold that many people, and the Coast Guard has to come out and rescue them, and they want to land on the shore wherever they're pointed at, and they have no plan and they have no resources and they're a burden on everybody. And that is the perspective a lot of people have about this migration of people. So sure, it's a very important topic, an important perspective to have on that topic. I just really wish that this book had been paced a little bit more digestibly. But it is an arc. It comes out this year. I don't remember which month. Once again, I need to write this in my notebook. But it comes out this year. It is readable if you like dark literary stuff. You may like it better than I did. Yeah. So then after that, I finished On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, which I wanted to like because it is from the Dublin Literary Award library reading project that I've been working on this year. And I have liked a lot of the books that I read that have been on that list. I did not like this book. It is another good perspective from a voice that we don't always see, set in Vietnam. And yeah, I did not like this book. By the end of the first section of this book, I was already so turned off on it that if I DNF'd books more, I probably would have just DNF'd this book. There's particularly a animal cruelty scene. If you are easily triggered, or even at all triggered by animal cruelty scenes in cultural scenes where people are doing things that Western people would never in a million years decide to do to creatures, I'll put it that way, you may not want to read this book. After that scene, it's not actually all that relevant to the rest of the book. I don't see why that was even included, to be honest. It was sensationalism that, if anything, invites the reader to typecast a whole group of people based on this behavior as barbaric, which is not a direction we want to be going. So anyway, it was unfortunate. I did not enjoy this book. I do not recommend this book. There are other Vietnamese authors and other Vietnamese stories that are way better. You don't need to read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. You could move on. It's okay. Which is what I did. And I suppose that reading experience might be part of why I went to watching tornadoes for a while. So currently I am working my way through some more arcs. And I am reading or listening to the audiobook of The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman, which is book 3 in the Thursday Murder Club books. I finished book 4 already because it was due and I couldn't renew it. So I already kind of know some spoilers in this one. But that's okay, it's fun. There's a scene that is absolutely hilarious. The Thursday Murder Club has an author, a local author who writes crime novels. He's doing a book talk for them. And they are grilling him. And it's precious. So, very funny. I'm enjoying the book. I was actually listening to it while I was writing all my books down in my notebook. So that was fun. Let's see which books I dropped that I was going to talk about. So, just real quick, the books I finished last week, so that the second week of May. I started out the second week of May with Cinema Love. And I talked about some of these books already in the previous video because I was late in getting my first video. Yeah. So Cinema Love, then The Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan, People in the Trees by Hanya Yanagihara, Dr. Calhoun's Mousery by Lee Ellen Dugatkin, then Rabbits by Terry Miles, which I am still kind of rereading little bits. It's making more sense. Another one of those, probably a bit like the Philip K. Dick stories, where it makes more sense the more you reread it. And then Stars Over Clear Lake by Loretta Ellsworth. That one was a print arc that by now has been out for a while. Knife by Salman Rushdie, which is the nonfiction about his surviving the knife attack from 2 years ago. And that one was good, 4.5. Stars Over Clear Lake, I actually gave a 4.75. Rabbits, I gave 4.75. The Fury by Alex Michaelides was okay. I gave it a 4. It wasn't very long, so that was good. It was okay. It was fun, but not terribly, terribly memorable. Yeah. The Cursed Carnival by Rick Riordan. Rick Riordan. I think that's how they're saying it. Cursed Carnival was a short story collection that fit in so nicely with the Escape the Readathon theme. So I definitely had to finish that one. That was an audiobook, and it was really good. It's multiple authors. There are several stories by Riordan, and then a bunch by other people. And these stories are like similar to Riordan's books as novels, where you have usually young people, kids or young adults, who are the children of gods or in some way have interactions with gods from all sorts of different cultures beyond what Riordan's books cover. So that was actually a fun book. Then The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. That's the one that was due, and I had to return it. That's book 4. And then Who Will Run the Frog Hospital by Lori Moore. This is a short literary fiction. This is the one that fell off, of course. Okay, this one. Yes. Who Will Run the Frog Hospital? This one was good. It was literary fiction. Sort of about friendship and stuff. Lori Moore does a lot of books about people and relationships and just, people, basically. So this is another one of hers it's very short. I'm not going to say too much about it. It was good. I do recommend it. It's about friendship. And then the last book I finished from week 2 was Have a Little Faith by Mitch Albom, which is nonfiction. It's talking about a rabbi and a non-traditional preacher and their lives and how they ended up where they are and doing what they're doing and their impact on the world around them. So, nice, short, fast read nonfiction. And readable by an atheist, because I am still an atheist. I did still enjoy it. Not a 5-star for me, but it was a good book. So yeah. That's those. And then the last book actually was an arc. I did finish Contrast by Linda Kosomal, which was literary fiction magical realism, in which a ghost is resolving his issues so that he can move on, basically. And somehow there's a wall that is sprung up between two backyards, and nobody put it there. And then things start happening, and it's all to do with this ghost. So that was kind of fun. Again, it's coming out this year. It hasn't come out yet that I know of. But it was pretty good. Yeah. So those are the books that I've finished so far since my last update. And we're going to try to actually do the next update in like 7 days. So that's the plan. So that we're not doing 2 weeks worth of update all at once. So I did actually promise that I was also going to show what I've been working on. So I finished a blanket. Here's the blanket I finished. I actually put an edge on it. I don't always do a textured edge, but it lent itself to that. This is all using Karen Simply Soft. So working in the ends was fun. I used a continuous join method, so there's not that many ends, which is nice. And I don't make the squares. This is one of those where we have a lady that makes the squares, and then our club puts them together in a blanket. So I did the putting it together part, which still is a lot of work, but the lady that does the squares made the squares. I just did the green part that made it all blankety. So that one is done. The project that I was working on today during sprints is orange. It is a basket weave. You can see the texture on that. And then I got bored with basket weave, so I did a couple rows of front post stitches. Look at that texture. Which just makes really deep stripes when you only do front post back and forth. And now I'm going back to doing basket weave again. So I will be working on this for the foreseeable future, along with other projects. I have a short attention span. It's that long so far, so not quite a blanket yet. And then I did start a new project that's going to be just using up scraps. Here's just the center. This is the Calming Comfort Afghan from Crochet Crowd, one of their crochet alongs. So I'm just using up scraps with that one. The orange one is using an H hook, so it's going to take a while. H is smaller. This one is using a J hook, so it won't take quite as long because it has a bigger hook. So that's nice, at least. Yeah, and then the other project I'm working on is a hat. This one is closer to done. I got the cap part of the hat done. I'm gonna get the color better. It is gray and dark red. It's also just scrap, but there was enough of it to do a hat. This one's wool, or wool blend anyway. So that will be nice. And this one is using a K, so a little bit bigger hook. But all of them are really basic projects. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. And then the other thing I wanted to show off before I let you guys move on to the next video I've been gathering books for next month. And I do have 2 books that I wanted to show. This one is one that several people talked about it in our sci-fi team Discord. And I will be definitely reading this next month. And at least one other person also owns it and is probably going to also try to read it next month. So if you would like to do a Barnacle Buddy read on a book that several of us are possibly going to read next month, this is No Blade of Grass by John Christopher. I love John Christopher's tripod books. They are middle grade sci-fi. If you're looking for sci-fi that's fast and easy for prompts next month, and I have no idea what all those prompts are going to be, nobody does, except Bree, and we'll find out. In the meantime, keep in mind John Christopher and the Tripod series. They are really, really, really cool middle grade sci-fi. I have not read No Blade of Grass, but I own it. So I'm looking forward to this book. The other book I pulled is going to be a reread. One of my favorite sci-fi books ever, If the Stars Are Gods, by Gregory Benford and Gordon Eklund. This book is a novel and short stories. And it involves some different concepts of aliens that I love the world building in this book. So, we'll see if I still love it the second or third time around. I may have read it more than once already, but not. The first time I read it, I wasn't keeping a spreadsheet yet, if I read it more than once. So, in any case, this will be a reread. It's been a long time. So, If the Stars Are Gods, it's a good sci-fi book. Yes. I also am going to try to finish the Dune series next month. I am Team Sci-Fi, so definitely an excuse to do sci-fi series I've been meaning to finish. I have several more of the Grand Tour series by Ben Bova that definitely are on my list. I left off maybe on Venus. So I've been making my way in order through the Grand Tour. I think I'm at Venus now. So that should be fun. Yeah, I'm going to be playing more sci-fi. I got together a whole bunch of Star Trek books. Star Trek may actually be super useful for prompts. They're not very long, though, and page count does matter. So some of the longer books I haven't gotten to for forever might suddenly be very useful for this one. So I will do some more videos talking about sci-fi possibilities, but I'm going to sign off on this one before I get any longer than I already am. And yeah, let me know if you've read any of the books that I've read and what you thought of them. Or if you are interested in joining in for If the Stars Are Gods or No Blade of Grass, because both of those should be really good books. Or if you're reading Dune or the Grand Tour series or some other series. I grew up on sci-fi, so I have read a lot of sci-fi, but obviously not all of it, and there's gaps. There are some classic sci-fi authors that were just misogynist enough that I never really got into them when I was younger, and some where they're not misogynist, but they only maybe have one female character, and it's really just a love interest, that kind of thing. That used to be a lot more of a problem in the genre. So yeah, I might do a video specifically on sci-fi soon. I need to get enough books together that I want to specifically talk about to do that. So we'll see. It's hard to talk about much in plans until we have prompts. So TBR planning might be a little bit nebulous for next month. Just as it was for this month, actually. But, yep, I will catch you guys soonish. There's lots of sprints coming up. Neva has her 24-hour sprints this weekend. Coda and Noteworthy Fiction Nicole are doing sprints all day Monday. I will probably be on screen for at least part of that. There's sprints the rest of the week, various places. So I will be around. I will see you on sprints somewhere if you are one of the folks that does sprints. And I will try and catch a bunch of videos of other people this week. I've gotten a little behind, but not too much. I need to do comments on people's videos though. So expect comments if you've done videos lately. I will be trying to get to those this week. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye guys!